But it's good to be back here now and to be back in our community and having worship together. Couple of quick announcements as you are registering your attendance, I hope, on your card. And if you're visiting with us for the first time, especially, we hope you'll register your attendance. We want to keep in touch with you. Couple of quick announcements. If you look on the back of your bulletin, just for a reinforcement of these, we have our drumming group coming up on Tuesday. If you've never drummed or if you've been a part of this and you want just know how much fun it is, but if you've never done it with us, we have about 30 or 40 in the community, but we'll have about 8 to 10 people any given Tuesday evening. And it's a great time, great experience of camaraderie and community and insight, actually, that we get in this community drumming kind of thing. And we do it over in Wesley Hall at the main church building at 7 o'clock, so I hope you can join us. Darrell Parker in our midst here, and Austin Patton helped to co-lead that thing. Then next Sunday at 6 p.m., I want to make sure I don't get too early, but at 6 p.m. in here, we've been talking about it. Sharon's been organizing this thing. It's amazing, and she's done a fantastic job. Absolutely. We only have a few tickets left. So if you're interested, be sure to see Sharm and or someone else downstairs that will be selling these tickets, because there's only a few left. And we're going to be seating at tables, sort of coffee style, bar style, cocktail style, and seated at tables. And the room will have about 150 people in here, and we'll have the band up here doing amazing music and featuring the amazing singer-songwriter Hannah Kirby, who was one of the finalists on The Voice. A lot of you have heard her with our group before. She's phenomenal. She does this for free every time she joins us, and in particular, this band and the money that you all, they're doing it for free. And thank you, guys. Thank you. That's amazing. And all the money raised from the ticket sales and any other donations is going to go to this amazing organization, the Center for Transforming Lives, in helping women in transition who are here in the programs and the residents and that sort of thing. So it's a great community thing for us. I'm excited about having that kind of crowd. This is going to be a lot of fun and have a lot of meaning too, as well. And snacks. Oh yeah, there'll be snacks. There'll be snacks. Yeah, so come and munch and listen. Okay, I think that is it for now. So good to have you all here today, and let's begin with our welcome candle.
Well, the welcome candle is lit, and if you'll join me in the welcoming words. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come yet again.
Open your eyes and live the day. You see We're already standing. That's great. We're going to sing a song together now. And it's this Peter Mayer song, Blue Boat Home. And, of course, during this song is a great time to bring your offering to the table. So here we go. Here we go right here. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been saved. Verse 2, here we go. Some I sing and look my rudder as I climb the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions. Pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat. Verse 3, here we go. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail and rain, winds urging me on, the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the clouds, never harbor or port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat. The wide universe, here we go. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat.
Everybody have a seat, please. And my apologies for jumping us up all early like that and then forgetting the prayer and then getting out of order. I was sharing with Charm, it's not like riding a bicycle. Just takes me a week and I've forgotten how the whole service works already. But I wanted to introduce, before we bring Gene Wisdom up here to share a reading, I wanted to have a moment of prayer, but I also wanted to think about where we are. This is Epiphany. It's not simply the new year, but it's actually, we celebrate today as the beginning of, essentially the beginning of the Christian year for the church is Epiphany, when the wise men or the Magi discovered and Christ was revealed to the Gentiles, essentially, but when they discovered the Christ child. So we'll talk about that in a second, but this idea, I love this song, Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow. The Irish have a wonderful saying, which is, the thing about the past is that it's not the past. It's never the past, it's always present. It's sort of hard to get rid of the past. But tomorrow, if we're not careful and we're trying to avoid the past, we end up repeating the past. So it's this whole idea of don't stop thinking about tomorrow. I want to play with that, with the idea of letting go, not just letting go, of being empty. And what does it mean to be empty? when we're concerned about past, present, future. What does the future hold? Will 2019 be a better year for some of us, or will it be a worse year for some of us? Will it be the same? We sort of enter into life with these already assumptions and expectations that, in a sense, just repeat the past, how we've been. So, let's pray together. Holy One, we come into this new year with expectations, with baggage in many ways, so hard to sort of be present to something new, and yet here we are at Epiphany, which literally means the discovery of something new. And so we ask for presence, we ask for you to remind us to be present to what is new in our midst and what we are missing. We give thanks for this chance to be together, to be with one another, and we offer ourselves in openness for this time together. We lift this up in the name of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen. Gene? There he is, Gene.
Stories tell us about life. They're a way of communicating, whether that be in songs or in prose or in poetry. And sometimes they're very straightforward, and sometimes we have to listen very carefully. So listen to this short story. One day when Pooh Bear had nothing else to do, he thought he would do something. And so he went round to Piglet's house to see what Piglet was doing. It was still snowing as he stumped over the white forest track, and he expected to find Piglet warming his toes in front of his fire. But to his surprise, he saw that the door was open, and the more he looked inside, the more Piglet wasn't there.
So today, as we come to our time of Kairos, and for those of you who are visiting with us, Kairos is our time to sit, to stop between what just happened and what will happen. We see it as a way to practice something that could be very useful to us throughout the week. So we pause, we make plenty of space for our breath, we sit up straight. So I invite you to get ready for some gentle breathing and deep inhales and slow exhales. And while you do that, the band will play a song for your reflection. So please join me now in getting comfortable and ready to take in fresh breaths for the new year.
Calm down. Deep breaths. Get yourself dressed. Instead of running around, pulling all your threads and breaking yourself up. If it's broken, part replace it. If it's a broken arm, then brace it. If it's a broken heart, then face it. Hold your own, know your name, and go your own way. Hold your own, know your name, and go your own way. And everything will be fine. Help is on the way. Stay strong. I'm doing everything. Hold your own. Know your name. Go your own way. Hold your own. Know your name. Go your own way. Everything be fine. Everything. All the details in the fabric, all the things that make you panic, all your thoughts results statically. All the things that make you blow, how no reason go on and scream. If you're shocked, it's just a fault, a faulty manufactured beat. Yeah. Everything will be fine. Everything in no time. Everything. Hold your own. Know your name. And go your own way. All the details in the fabric, all the things that make you panic, all your thoughts results statically. All the details in the fabric, all the things that make you panic, it's in Mother Nature's sewing machine. All the things that make you blow, hell no reason go on and scream. If you're shocked, it's just a fault, a faulty manufacturing. Everything, viva, everything, no time at all, hearts will hold.
So I'd like to do, we're doing things a little bit out of order here, obviously, but what I want you to do is take a moment now, if you stand, and if you just greet one another with signs of peace and welcome. Peace. Good to see y'all, Ben. Missed y'all.
The year started well.
Thank you. Same to you.
Great song choices.
Thanks. Thank you.
As we bring ourselves back to worship, Jesus always offered hospitality wherever he went. And a big part of what we do at 11:11 is be hospitable to one another. So thank you for enjoying this time of introducing yourselves and welcoming one another to this worship. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, the writer there organized many of Jesus' sayings into one long sermon that takes 2 chapters. This reading comes from a part of the Sermon on the Mount. So I invite you to listen very carefully to these words from Jesus' teachings, because I guarantee you within these words you will find for yourself a word. Has anyone, by fussing in front of the mirror, ever gotten taller by so much as an inch? All this time and money wasted on fashion, do you think it makes that much difference? Instead of looking at the fashions, walk out into the fields and look at the wildflowers. They never primp or shop, but have you ever seen such color and design quite like it? The 10 best dressed men and women in the country look shabby alongside them. If God gives such attention to the appearance of wildflowers, most of which are never seen, don't you think God will attend to you, take pride in you, do the best for you? What I'm trying to do here is get you to relax, to not be so preoccupied with getting, so you can respond to what God is giving. People who don't know God and the way God works fuss over these things, but you know both God and how God works. Steep your life in God reality, God initiative, God's provisions. And don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. May the Creator of life add blessings to the hearing and your living of these words.
Thank you, Gene. Appreciate that. And many of you will recognize this text, Matthew 3:6-33, especially one of my favorite texts. Seek ye first, if you do the King James, which is what I memorized growing up in my early adolescence in the Baptist church. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. And I love the way in which Peterson, in the Message, sort of unfolds this and opens this up with a little more contextual meaning for us in the 20th, 21st century. But here's the interesting thing. If you know, this is Epiphany, right? So today is the first day of our liturgical year, so to speak, for those in many Protestant churches all around the country, including our own in the main sanctuary. I don't know what they were doing in gathering, but in the main sanctuary, in the traditional service, they're reading Matthew 2:1-12. The familiar story of the Magi and their trek across the land in search of the baby Jesus, and then Herod's attempt to stop this movement and kill all the children under 2, and the drama of this story when they finally find the baby Jesus. And I was sharing this with Sharm, about what the wise men brought, and Sharm reminded me of that wonderful image when I said, I made a joke and said the wise men, there was one that brought myrrh and one that brought gold, and then the other one they looked and said, what, Frankenstein? And Sharm was like, yeah, but the real thing about it is that when the wise guys left, the wise women came along and brought casseroles, and they brought diapers, and they brought hugs, and far more pragmatic, and probably asked for directions, and didn't have any problem getting there whatsoever. But this idea of Epiphany, so why on Epiphany, a traditional Sunday, when we're talking about the revelation of God in the world, am I talking about one of Jesus' seminal teachings that he offered from the Sermon on the Mount when he's teaching the Beatitudes and this whole series of teachings that he offers? with one of this being this seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added to you. So I want to think with you for the next 4 weeks this idea of being empty in order to experience life more fully, and to play with Epiphany, this season of discovery, as a vehicle for looking into that more deeply. And it was fun because Gene, former retired clergy from the North Texas Conference, he comes up and he says, "Can't wait to see how you put this together." But he said it with affirmation. I want you to know that, because we have fun in here trying to pull all of these various sort of different ideas together, and the quotes that are on the back side of the page, and the text, and then we open up with a song like "Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow," and if you're a visitor, you're wondering, for the first time, if you're a visitor, you're wondering, like, this is not what I expected, or maybe it is. Hopefully it was. A lot of folks come in and first time here, and they said, "What a breath of fresh air." So for us, it's a chance to explore real life and find the sacred in every moment. That's what Epiphany really is. Epiphany really is that moment when the birth of a child made the difference in all the world. When the birth of a child can make the difference in any of our worlds, but this particular birth means something so profound. But it breaks into the ordinary. How does the sacred break into our ordinary all the time? That's kind of what we do here every Sunday, right? We try to think about the different ways that happens. So this day in the church year, the manifestation of Christ to the Gentiles, which is essentially what that story says. Not every gospel has the story. 2 of the gospels have it, 2 of them don't. But this, and then of course Paul doesn't talk about it whatsoever, nor do the other writers. This story means something. It's more simply than how the historical Jesus came to be. Whether or not you believe that as a historical story or not isn't really important. In all honesty, it's not. What's important is the truth behind this story, which is that love breaks into the world, that love is present in the world, and that sometimes Epiphany really means, are we paying attention? Epiphany means discovery, the first time we realize something we hadn't realized before. And is it happening on any kind of consistent basis? Because what use is there of the birth of Jesus being in the world if, in fact, we are not discovering something new? I have this wonderful quote that I think I put it on here. I hope I did. Yes. It's a Japanese proverb that I love, which is, actually, Henry David Thoreau. When any real progress is made, we unlearn and learn anew what we thought we knew before. Right? Or my favorite way to say it is like my uncle used to say. He says, we only know what we know, and chances are we don't know that. And then, of course, my other favorite one is this Japanese proverb, knowledge is learning something every day. Wisdom is letting go of something every day. So Epiphany has always been an important part, more important part of liturgical year for my family than Christmas. Now, Christmas is important, but it's really, if you really get down to it, the birth of Christ, celebrating the birth of Christ, the birth of the Christ child is important, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we have Creasters, right? We have the people who come on Christmas and they come on Easter. And why do they do that? Is it just because they just hope to have sort of like a last ticket, somehow to keep that ticket clicked so they get it? Why come at all? Other than it's a communal tradition, it's a cultural tradition too. But I think there's another reason why, is because we all are longing for something deeper and bigger than us. And sometimes we desperately want it, and we remind ourselves annually. I think a lot of people come for that. But the real message doesn't happen until discovery. The real message doesn't happen until something opens us up. Something changes us, and that's Epiphany. We suddenly have an insight. We suddenly see something. So that time became more important to me and my family, to our 2 kids, than Christmas, even though we love Christmas because we exchange gifts and we have a great family time and that great community time and the beautiful celebration. But it's the Epiphany, the discovery of that new life and love in our midst that seems to be, to me, what's most important. And so what my family would do is we'd have epiphanal celebrations. And we don't do it as much now as we used to because the boys are growing up. But we started this when they were very young, when they were small, maybe 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. And we did this with our good friends, Chris and Jim Riddlesberger. Some of you all know Jim Riddlesberger, professor of political science, and she was a professor of nursing. And they're members of this church. They've probably taught some of your classes if you've gone to some Sunday school classes. Jim's a political science teacher and very active in the political science political community. Their kids growing up grew up with our kids. And so they joined in with this tradition, which I think is quite a risky venture. Anytime the McDermotts say, you want to join us in something? And so we started, because I toured the country as a storyteller, I'm always looking for interesting, curious instruments. So my house is full of these weird things like hurdy-gurdies and theremins. And then these lovely instruments, which are called dongchoks or chungpas. They are Tibetan horns. Now, I can't play one for my life. I mean, it takes a lot of breath. And just blowing it a couple of times, and I'm already dizzy. But I have a clip, and I want Justin to play a clip of the Tibetan monks playing this instrument. It's like they're going, that was the wrong note. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's enough. So that's how they're supposed to sound. Now, they're up at 10,000 feet altitude and doing that. It takes a lot of breath and a lot of practice to get these things to actually make these notes and to get these overtones, and you're hearing them blow these things. If you look up and kind of do some research on why they do this, why it's a part of every pretty much significant ritual they have, and you're probably wondering, why is he even talking about Tibetan Buddhism, this kind of thing? But well, because it relates to my story. But what they're doing is they're calling everyone to attention. They're calling everyone to attention. And the low note is to resonate with that low vibration, the very ground of our being, that very essence of our birth that we're not aware of because we're in our mother's womb. But we're no longer aware of it now, but we felt it then. We felt everything as low vibration and sustenance. We felt everything as support. So they blow these horns as a way of reminding people. What do you do in your lives to remind you of how deeply connected and embraced we are by life? What do we do regularly to do that? That's epiphany to me. That's reminding us to sort of let go of whatever's keeping us from that in order to be present to what that is. So we celebrated it by taking these horns. I have 4 of them, and ones that's even bigger and one that's much smaller. So we would take these horns as well as some British hunting horns, little 4-foot horns that you would use on a horseback. And then what we do is we have a celebration at the house, and we celebrate Epiphany. We mix it with Mardi Gras. We'd have a king's cake, and we'd look for the baby Jesus. And whoever found the baby Jesus in the cake then gets to go and do what, they're the king for the day or the queen for the evening. And we do what they want to do. And usually it's always been something fun, We'll go to Chick-fil-A or we'll go to a movie. Sometimes we've gone to a movie that evening, the 6 of us, or 8 of us. Yeah, the 8 of us. And so, but then what we do on the way to wherever the deal is, Matthew, my youngest, won it like 2 or 3 times, and every time he won it, the one thing, you can do anything, Matthew. Anything. What do you want to do? He'd say, I want Biggie fries. So we go to McDonald's and get Biggie fries and head home. But on the way there, and no matter where we were going, we took the minivan. That's what I used to drive for years with my kids. We take the minivan, open up the back end. The boys sat with the seats down while the adults rode up in the front, and they blew the trungpas out the back as we drove around town. We made sure to drive through downtown as people were eating at the restaurants. And we shouted at the top of our lungs to remind people Christmas is one thing, but happy Epiphany. And hopefully some people went and looked it up instead of just going like, what's wrong with that family? And we would shout it all the way to wherever we were going and then wish the people at the counter or wish the people in the movie theater happy Epiphany. Nobody usually would ask us what that means, but we would wish it anyway and blow these horns. This idea of waking up is what I think Epiphany is all about. And from the angle of emptiness, I think it's an invitation. When I talk about being empty, the one thing I want to think about in this series is I want us to move away from thinking about some Zen-like state of mindfulness or satori or some kind of idea of non-attachment. I'm not really talking about that, although that's certainly a helpful thing if you find it helpful too. But I'm not also thinking about some monastic ascetic tradition where it's really about kairos. I'm not really talking about mindfulness, about being present to the moment that seeks to let go, or some austere kind of relationship with the world that is saying we need to let go of everything. We need to live more minimalist. We need to be more sacrificial in giving. That's not what I'm talking about emptiness either. I'm not talking about that sort of idea of letting go and letting God. I'm not even thinking in those terms. Although that's not bad. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't do anything like that. Someone came up to me and said, but I have known what it feels like to be empty, right? Or I've known the feeling of emptiness. And I get that. And in a sense, that's what I'm talking about. If you look up the root word of empty, you'll find two root definitions that are so amazing to me. I never realized this. I always think of emptying as letting go of something. But the thing we're letting go of is that the root word of what empty is. And you know what that root word is? It is fear. The root word of emptiness actually means the absence of fear. It says leisure and comfort, and the absence of fear is emptiness. That's at the root. Now, we've taken it and we've made all sorts of interesting meanings out of emptiness. But even the idea of my life is lacking in something is a fear that continues to control me. And so when I want to think about emptiness with you over the next 4 weeks, as we enter into the season of 2019, and we enter into this continual sort of reality around us, not even just the political or the social reality around us that's a little bit, or maybe a lot of it, touch and go and anxiety producing for us in all different ways. But even our own lives as we enter into this new year and these expectations we hope for or these assumptions we bring to the moment. What I'm really thinking about is how do we learn to let go of fear? One of my person that I've come to know over the years is, I don't have my time in front of me. I need to make sure I've got that in front of me. Yes, okay. Is this woman by the name of Greta Vosper, who's a United Church of Christ minister up in Canada, just on the other side of the border in Alberta. And one of the things that she does that we used to do is they have a big celebration of the winter solstice. We used to do that on a more regular basis. But we think of this season, of course, as the winter season. Solstice is on the 21st. It's the longest night of the year. And this season, in terms of creation spirituality, in terms of having a deeper connection with life around us, is a season of fallowness, right? It's a season of everything in sort of a state of rest, a state of stillness, a dormancy even. So at this time of year, we're really invited to sort of be more present to that, but I see it as more an invitation to take what frightens us and to find ways to rest with that, to live into that in order to set it free. Once we learn to set some of these things free, I think, and many of you know what I'm talking about, we begin to discover what Rumi called the gift that this guest house welcomes when it's open to the discomforts, when it's open to the mysteries, when it's open to the sadness or the challenges, that all of them, in fact, are angels unaware, our possibilities for some new epiphany. And so this next 4 weeks, we're going to explore with what it means to be empty. As we do that, I want us to think about this Winnie the Pooh scene. You know, Christopher Robin is growing up, right? Or he's beginning to figure out what it means to be growing up. He's in the 100-acre wood, and he's discovering imagination will play this big role in what it means to be alive. And not the elimination of imagination. I mean, isn't that what A.A. Milne is doing in writing such a book that more of us as adults have enjoyed than children, in fact? Because it speaks to something we have forgotten to hang on to, which is the willingness to imagine, the willingness to be present to something that's bigger than us, the willingness to let go of fear in order to discover. There's this bravery that you sense with someone like Christopher Robin. Something that like Brené Brown speaks about when she talks about living fearlessly. She's not talking about bravery in terms of soldiers or in terms of taking massive risk without concern. She's talking about opening up to life, whatever comes, to live into it, to live authentically. The way in which our song by Jason Mraz speaks to being who we are. Not the facade of fear or anxiety or what we worry about or what comes next, but being who we are at the very ground of our being, the gift of our life that we have, the presence of God at the very ground of who we are, reminding us that that's what we are called to be. And so he comes and he discovers that in Pooh and Piglet, there's really a yin and a yang. And maybe the first step in finding God's kingdom is letting go of our own assumptions enough to discover the fact that we are already there.
Stars are standing around themselves. Trains are so safe to lean and listen to the heartbeat of a lark with a lark in my heartbeat. The oxygen and priest agree. Answers dressed in labyrinth. The telescopes atop the mountains of ecstatic vision, listening to the heartbeat of a lark and the lark in my heartbeat. Hey, 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 yeah. I am assured, yes, I am assured, yes, I am assured peace will come to me. A peace that can, yes, surpass the speed, yes, of my understanding and my need. The meteor whirlwind and counterbalance to the sparks of her ascending. Arrow time shoots forward through moves of repetition to the heartbeat of a lark and the lark in my heartbeat. Hey, 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 hey. What is it drives the driven snow? Upon whose temples will I rest my weary lips now? Rain distills down steeples, fills the ears of a lonely church place with the heartbeat of a lark and the lark in my heartbeat. Hey, 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 hey. I am sure, yes, I am sure, yes, I am sure peace will come to me. A peace that can, yes, surpass the speed, yes, of my understanding and my need.
I invite you to come back over the next several weeks. We're going to explore what it means to be what it means to be empty. We're going to explore the idea of the bucket list and play around with the empty bucket list, or maybe what I call the unbucket list. So, what does it mean to be empty in love? What does it mean to be empty at work? And we're just going to have some fun playing with the idea of living fearlessly in life. Let's stand for our blessing. Take somebody's hand if you don't mind. This is the season of colds and flus. I just warn everybody that I shook hands with. My wife's home with a cold today. So just remember, find some soap and wash your hands later on. Practice good hygiene this season. Let's pray. Holy One, we go from this place with open hearts and open minds. May we be surrounded by such openness. May we be surrounded by such emptiness that we are able to let go enough to experience the new births that are seeking to be born in our lives now. And that we might be reflections of a yes to life in a world that's a little scared. Bless us as we go from this place. We pray in the name of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen.